I never thought my father's debts would lead me into the office of a man like Dante Moretti. The building alone should have warned me. 40 stories of black glass and steel in the heart of the city. The kind of place where decisions worth millions were made before breakfast, and fortunes crumbled by lunch. I dressed carefully that morning. Navy blazer, pencil skirt, my mother's pearl earrings, trying to look professional, competent, like someone who belonged in rooms where power lived and breathed. I didn't belong. Not even close. The elevator ride to the 38th floor felt like ascending into another world. My reflection stared back at me from the polished steel doors. 24 years old, auburn hair twisted into what I hoped looked like a sophisticated bun. Green eyes too wide with nerves I couldn't quite hide. My father had been dead 3 weeks. The creditors had started calling 2 weeks ago. And yesterday, I'd received a letter on heavy cream cardstock with embossed lettering that simply said, Moretti Holdings. Thursday 9 a.m. Do not be late. The reception area was all marble and modern art.
Why are you doing
the kind that probably cost more than my entire education. A woman with perfect posture and a smile that didn't reach her eyes directed me down a hallway where my heels clicked too loudly against the floor. Miss Brennan, she said, opening a door to an office that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city like a kingdom spread at our feet. The desk was massive, dark wood that gleamed with polish, and behind it sat a man who made my heart stumble in my chest. Dante Moretti was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with black hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and dark eyes that tracked my every movement as I stepped inside. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent, and when he stood, I realized how tall he was, how controlled, how utterly terrifying. Miss Brennan. His voice was low, almost soft, dangerous in its gentleness. Sit. It wasn't a request. I sat in the leather chair across from his desk, trying not to notice how my hands trembled as I folded them in my lap. Mr. Moretti, your father owed me $2 million. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. He had 6 months to repay. He didn't. My throat tightened. I know. I'm trying to sort out his estate, but everything is complicated. He tilted his head slightly. I imagine death usually is. I don't have $2 million. The words came out steadier than I felt. I have an apartment I'm renting, a car that's barely running, and about $4,000 in savings, but I'm willing to work out a payment plan. Or a payment plan. Something flickered in his dark eyes. Amusement, maybe. You think you can pay me back in installments? Like a student loan? Heat flooded my cheeks. I'm trying to be reasonable. Reasonable. He came around the desk then, and I had to force myself not to shrink back in my chair. He perched on the edge of the desk, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and woody that made my pulse quicken for reasons I didn't want to examine. Let me be reasonable, Miss Brennan. Your father made promises. He didn't keep them. In my world, that has consequences. He's dead, I whispered. What more do you want? I want what I'm owed. His gaze held mine, and I couldn't look away. Your father took my money. Said he'd triple it in 6 months with some real estate venture that turned out to be smoke and mirrors. He gambled the rest away before the cancer took him. I hadn't known about the gambling. Another secret my father had kept. Another weight added to the guilt that already pressed on my chest every time I thought of him. I can't give you what I don't have. No. He leaned forward slightly, and I caught my breath. But you can work for it. The words hung between us, and for a moment, all I could hear was my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Work for it? I repeated carefully. I own hotels, restaurants, import businesses. He gestured vaguely toward the window, toward the city spread below us. I need someone to manage certain accounts, bookkeeping, client relations. You have a degree in business administration, don't you? How do you... I know everything about you, Elena. The way he said my name made something flutter low in my stomach. I know you graduated top of your class. I know you've been working at Davidson and Price as a junior analyst for 2 years. I know you're good with numbers and better at staying quiet. The implication in those last words made my skin prickle with unease. This is business, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Just business. A job to pay off a debt. He smiled then, slow and predatory. Just business, he repeated. Is that what you're calling it? What else would it be? He studied me for a long moment, and I felt stripped bare under that gaze, like he could see every fear and secret I carried. You start Monday, he said finally. 9 a.m., same floor, different office. Your salary will go directly toward the debt. At your current rate, you'll be free in approximately 4 years. 4 years. 4 years of my life, bound to this man, to whatever dark empire he'd built behind the veneer of legitimate business. And if I refuse, then I'll take what your father owned. The house in Westport where your mother still lives. The life insurance policy he left her. Every asset, every penny. He leaned closer, and I could feel the heat of him. I'm not a cruel man, Elena, but I am a man who collects what he's owed. My mother. He would destroy my mother to get his money back. Fine. The word tasted like ash. Fine, I'll do it. Just business. Just business, he agreed. I stood, needing to escape the weight of his presence, the way my body reacted to him, even as my mind screamed warnings. I was almost to the door when he spoke again. Elena. I turned despite myself. He was still sitting on the edge of his desk, hands in his pockets, watching me with an expression I couldn't read. Welcome to the family, he said softly. The words followed me all the way home. Monday morning arrived too quickly. I'd barely slept over the weekend, my mind churning through everything I knew about Dante Moretti, which I'd discovered through careful internet searches, was very little. His businesses were legitimate on paper. Hotels, restaurants, a luxury car import company. But there were gaps in the information, spaces where questions led only to more questions, rumors of connections to old families, whispers about the way certain problems in the city simply disappeared. I told myself it didn't matter. 4 years. I'd keep my head down, do the work, and get out. The office he'd assigned me was 3 doors down from his, smaller but still impossibly nice. Glass desk, leather chair, a computer system that looked like it belonged in a tech company. A woman named Sophia showed me to it early 40s. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. You'll be managing the Rosewood accounts, she said, handing me a thick folder. Client payments, expense tracking, profit margins. Mr. Moretti likes detailed reports every Friday. The Rosewood? Hotel, uptown. She paused in the doorway. Advice? Don't ask questions you don't want answered. Do your job well, and you'll be fine. She left before I could ask what happened if I didn't do my job well. The work itself was straightforward at first. Numbers I could understand, spreadsheets I could organize. But as the hours passed, I started noticing things. Payments that didn't quite add up. Expenses labeled vaguely, consulting fees, operational costs, amounts that seemed too large or too small for what they supposedly covered. I was still puzzling over one particularly strange entry when my office door opened without a knock. Dante Moretti filled the doorway, and the room suddenly felt too small. How's your first day? He asked, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. Fine. I forced myself to meet his gaze, to ignore the way my pulse quickened. The accounts are interesting. Interesting. He moved closer, hands in his pockets, that same controlled grace I'd noticed in our first meeting. Found something that confuses you? No, I lead. He smiled slightly, like he knew exactly what I wasn't saying. You're a terrible liar, Elena. He was standing close enough now that I had to tilt my head back to look at him, close enough that I could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the way his jaw tightened slightly when he studied my face. The numbers, I said quietly. Some of them don't make sense, don't they? No. I gestured to my screen, desperate to focus on something other than the way his presence seemed to fill all the air in the room. This payment here. 200,000 labeled as consultation. That's protection, he said simply. The word hung between us. Protection, I repeated. The Rosewood is in territory that certain people think belongs to them. I disagree. The payment ensures that disagreement doesn't become messy. My hands felt cold. You're paying off criminals. I'm preventing violence. His tone was still calm, conversational. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. He reached past me, his arm brushing my shoulder as he clicked something on my screen. His cologne surrounded me, and I hated how aware I was of him. These payments keep families safe, keep businesses running, keep the peace. By giving money to thugs, by understanding how power works in this city. He didn't move away, and I couldn't quite bring myself to lean back. You wanted to know what you're working with? Now you know. Still think it's just business? The challenge in his voice made something spark in my chest, anger, maybe, or fear. I couldn't tell anymore. What else would it be? I asked, echoing my words from Thursday. His gaze dropped to my mouth for just a second before returning to my eyes. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with my racing heart and the growing certainty that I'd made a terrible mistake. The week blurred into routine. I arrived at 9, left at 6. Spent my days tracking money that flowed through channels I was beginning to understand I shouldn't ask about too closely. Dante appeared in my office at least once a day. Never for long, always with some question or comment that felt like a test. "You're good with patterns," he said Wednesday, looking over a report I'd prepared. "Most people don't notice the inconsistencies this quickly. Should I not notice them?" I didn't say that. He set the report down on my desk. "I'm saying you're smarter than you pretend to be." "I'm not pretending anything." "Aren't you?" He leaned against my desk, that casual pose that made him seem almost relaxed. Almost. "You dress like you're trying to disappear. Speak quietly, keep your head down, but your eyes, Elena, your eyes are taking in everything." I didn't know what to say to that.
Why are you doing this?
"Lunch," he said abruptly.
Exactly why. Don't
"Tomorrow.
pretend you don't."
My office. 1 p.m. "Why?" "Because I'm telling you to." He left before I could argue. Thursday's lunch turned out to be expensive takeout from an Italian place I recognized from the society pages. The kind of restaurant where reservations were booked months in advance and entrees cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "You didn't have to do this," I said, watching him set out containers of pasta and salad on the small table by his window. "I know." He pulled out a chair for me, and I sat, uncomfortably aware of how intimate this felt. Just the two of us in his massive office, the city spread below, no one else around. "But you've barely eaten all week. Sophia says you skip lunch. Sophia's spying on me? Sophia watches everyone." He took the seat across from me, pouring wine into glasses I hadn't noticed. "It's her job. I don't need to be watched. Maybe I like watching you." The words were quiet, almost casual, but they hit me like a physical touch. I looked up sharply and found him studying me with that intense focus that made my breath catch. "Mr. Moretti." "Dante." He lifted his glass. "If we're going to work together for 4 years, you should use my name." "Dante." I tried, and hated how intimate it sounded. "We're working," he finished. "Yes, you've said that. Just business." "It is." "Then eat, Elena. Business associates can share a meal." I picked up my fork, trying to ignore the way my hands trembled slightly, trying to ignore how much I liked hearing him say my name. We ate in silence for a while, and I found myself relaxing despite everything. The food was incredible, rich and perfectly seasoned, the wine smooth and warm, and Dante was different like this, quieter, almost gentle. "Tell me about your father," he said eventually. The question startled me. What about him? What kind of man was he? I set down my fork, the food suddenly tasteless. "The kind who left his family in debt to a man like you." "Fair enough." He didn't look offended. "But before that?" "Before?" I stared out the window, remembering. "Before he was kind. Funny. He taught me chess and took me to museums and made my mother laugh." My throat tightened. "Then he got sick and desperate, and he stopped being the man I knew." "People change when they're afraid," Dante said quietly. "Did you know him? Before the debt?" "No. I inherited his loan from someone else." He paused. "If I had known him, maybe things would have been different. But they're not." "No." His gaze held mine. "They're not." The moment stretched between us, heavy with things neither of us was saying. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the stillness, and he stood. "Back to work," he said, his voice returning to that controlled coolness. I gathered the containers, needing something to do with my hands. "Thank you. For lunch." "Elena." I paused at the door. "It's not just business," he said softly. "Not anymore. I fled before I could ask him what he meant. Friday afternoon, I learned what kind of man Dante Moretti really was. I'd been working on the weekly reports when raised voices filtered through my closed door. Male voices. Angry, one of them Dante's, though I'd never heard that edge in his tone before. I should have stayed in my office, should have kept my head down like Sophia had advised. Instead, I found myself standing, moving to my door, opening it just a crack. Dante's office door was open. 3 men stood in front of his desk, big, hard-looking men in expensive suits that didn't quite hide the bulk of weapons underneath. And Dante stood behind his desk, perfectly still, his face carved from ice. "You're refusing?" one of the men said, disbelief thick in his voice. He had silver in his hair and a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. "You're actually refusing Marco Vitale?" "I'm telling Marco that the answer is no," Dante said, his voice deadly quiet. "The docks stay as they are. My territory, my rules. Marco's not going to accept that." "Then Marco and I will have a conversation." Dante's hand rested on his desk, casual, relaxed. But I could see the tension in his shoulders, the coiled readiness. "In person. Not through messengers who think they can walk into my office and make demands." "You're making a mistake, Moretti." "Am I?" Something shifted in Dante's expression. Something cold and absolutely terrifying. "Let me be clear. I don't make mistakes. I make decisions. And my decision is that Marco can try to take the docks if he wants war. But he should remember what happened the last time someone came for what's mine." The silence that followed was suffocating. "I'll give him your message," the scarred man said finally. "You do that." Dante moved around his desk, and I saw it then, the gun holstered at his side, hidden by his jacket until he moved. "And Marco? Tell him Dante Moretti isn't afraid of him." The men left, and I should have closed my door, should have pretended I hadn't heard. But I stood frozen, watching as Dante's shoulders dropped slightly, as he ran a hand through his hair and let out a breath. Then he turned and looked directly at me. Our eyes met across the distance, and I saw everything in that moment. The danger, the power, the weight of whatever world he lived in that I was now part of. He moved toward me, and I stepped back instinctively, letting him into my office. He closed the door behind him with a soft click. "How much did you hear?" he asked. "Enough." My voice was barely a whisper. "The docks, Marco Vitale, territory, and now you understand." "Understand what?" "What I am." He stood close, too close, but I couldn't make myself move away. "What this is. It's not just hotels and restaurants, Elena. It's control, power, lines that can't be crossed without consequences. I couldn't say the word. Mafia. He said it for me, calm and certain. My grandfather built this family. My father expanded it. I inherited an empire built on blood and loyalty and decisions most people never have to make. I should have been terrified. Should have run. Instead, I heard myself ask, "Why tell me?" "Because you would have found out eventually. Because I'm tired of watching you pretend you don't see what's right in front of you." He lifted his hand, and I froze as he touched my jaw gently, tilting my face up. "And because I need you to understand something." "What?" I could barely breathe. "You're under my protection now. Anyone who touches you answers to me." His thumb brushed my cheekbone, so light I barely felt it. "Anyone who threatens you, frightens you, even looks at you wrong, they'll wish they hadn't. Because of my father's debt." "No." His eyes searched mine. "Not because of the debt." Then he was gone again, leaving me shaking and confused and far too aware of where he'd touched me. I couldn't focus for the rest of the day. My hands trembled as I typed, my mind replaying the confrontation I'd witnessed, the gentle way Dante had touched my face after showing such cold violence. At 6, I packed up my things, desperate to get home, to process everything in the safety of my own space. The parking garage was nearly empty, my heels echoing as I walked toward my car. I was fishing for my keys when I heard footsteps behind me. "Miss Brennan." I spun around. The scarred man from earlier stood 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, smile not reaching his eyes. "I don't think we were properly introduced," he said, moving closer. I know who you are." My voice was steadier than I felt. "And I'm leaving." "Not very friendly, are you?" He kept advancing, and I backed up until my car was at my back. I just wanted to ask you a few questions about your new boss. I have nothing to say to you. No? He was close now. Close enough that I could smell cigarettes and something sharper. See, I'm wondering what Moretti's interest in you is. Why he'd hire the daughter of a dead man who owed him millions. What exactly you're doing for him. My heart pounded against my ribs. Just business. Business. He laughed. That's cute. Tell me, does your business involve warming his bed? Or is he saving you for something special? Rage flooded through me, hot and sharp. Go to hell. His hand shot out, grabbing my arm. I don't think you understand. Let her go. The voice was cold, lethal, and absolutely familiar. The scarred man released me instantly, stepping back. Dante stood 20 feet away, perfectly still, his hand inside his jacket. 2 other men flanked him, both armed, both watching. Mr. Moretti, the scarred man said carefully. I was just touching what's mine. Dante's voice was soft, deadly, after I told Marco to stay away. I wasn't. You put your hands on her. Dante moved forward, and the scarred man actually backed up. In my building, in my garage, while she's under my protection. It was a mistake. Yes. Dante stopped in front of him, and I saw the gun in his hand now, held low and casual. It was, and you're going to walk out of here and tell Marco exactly what happened. Tell him that if anyone touches Elena Brennan again, I'll consider it a declaration of war. The scarred man looked between us, then nodded once and fled. Dante watched him go, then turned to me. His face was still hard, dangerous, but when he reached for me, his touch was gentle. Are you hurt? He asked. No, my voice shook. He didn't. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're trembling. He holstered his gun, then cupped my face in both hands, making me look at him. Elena, talk to me. I'm scared, I whispered. I know. His thumbs brushed my cheeks, and I realized I was crying. But you're safe. I promise you're safe. Why? The question burst out of me. Why do you care? I'm just someone paying off a debt, someone you didn't even know 2 weeks ago. You stopped being just someone the moment you walked into my office, he said fiercely. From the second I saw you, I knew. Knew what? That you were mine to protect. His forehead touched mine, and I couldn't breathe. Mine to keep safe. Mine. He'd said it. The word I'd been warned about. The claiming I'd expected to resent. I didn't resent it at all. This isn't just business, I said shakily. No, he agreed. It never was. One of his men cleared his throat discreetly, and Dante stepped back, though his hand caught mine. Come on, he said. I'm driving you home. Your car will be delivered tomorrow. I didn't argue, couldn't argue. I let him lead me to a black SUV that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. Let him settle me in the passenger seat with a gentleness that didn't match the violence I'd seen. As we drove through the city, his hand found mine again, our fingers interlacing in the darkness. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was falling into something I couldn't control. Something dangerous. Something inevitable. Dante insisted on driving me to work every morning after that. It's not necessary, I protested Monday, watching him pull up in front of my apartment building at exactly 8:30. Humor me, he said, and I found myself climbing into the passenger seat before I could think better of it. The drives were quiet, almost peaceful. He played classical music softly, his hand resting on the gear shift between us, occasionally reaching over to adjust the temperature or hand me coffee he'd picked up. We didn't talk much, but the silence felt comfortable. Safe. At work, he was still my boss. Professional, distant when others were around, but I caught him watching me sometimes. His dark eyes following me when I moved through the office. A look on his face I couldn't quite name. You're making people talk, Sophia told me Wednesday, appearing in my doorway with her usual perfect posture and assessing gaze. I'm not doing anything, I protested. You're existing, under his protection, in his space. She came into my office, closing the door. Do you understand what that means here? He's keeping me safe. He's claiming you. Sophia's voice was gentle but firm. To everyone in this world, you're his, whether you've accepted that or not. It's not like that, isn't it? She studied me carefully. Elena, I've worked for Dante for 8 years. I've seen him with women, beautiful, sophisticated women who threw themselves at him. He never looked at any of them the way he looks at you. My cheeks heated. How does he look at me? Like you're the only thing in the room that matters. She moved toward the door, then paused. Be careful. His world is dangerous, and people who want to hurt him will see you as the easiest target. She left me alone with that warning echoing in my mind. The threat started small. Thursday. Someone slashed my tires, or they would have. If my car had been in the parking garage instead of locked in Dante's private structure. Friday, a bouquet of dead roses appeared on my apartment doorstep with a note. Back off, or you'll end up like these. I showed Dante the note Saturday morning when he picked me up to take me to his house. I'd protested that too, spending the weekend at his estate, but he'd insisted, his voice leaving no room for argument. Pack a bag, Elena. You're not staying alone until I've dealt with this. His house was in the hills overlooking the city, all stone and glass and security that would put a military base to shame. Armed guards at the gate, cameras everywhere, staff who moved with the quiet efficiency of people who knew exactly how dangerous their employer could be. I stood in the entryway, staring at the marble floors and soaring ceilings. This is a palace. It's home. He took my bag from my hand. Your room is upstairs. Second door on the left. But first, we're going to talk. He led me to his office, smaller than the one downtown, but somehow more personal. Books lined the walls, and a fire crackled in a massive stone fireplace. He gestured to a leather couch, and I sat, watching as he poured 2 glasses of wine. Marco Vitali is escalating, he said, handing me a glass. The roses were from him. A warning. A warning about what? About you. About how close you're getting to me. He sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. He thinks you're a weakness he can exploit. Am I? I asked quietly. A weakness? His gaze held mine. Yes, the honesty of it stunned me. But you're also... He paused, choosing words carefully. You're something I didn't expect. Something I don't want to lose. Dante, I need you to understand the danger you're in. Marco wants the docks. He wants territory I control. And he thinks hurting you will make me back down. His jaw tightened. He's wrong. What are you going to do? End this. Permanently. He set down his wine glass, turning to face me fully. But until I do, you stay here, where I can protect you, where I know you're safe. I can't just move in with you. You can. You will. His hand came up, cupping my face the way he had in the garage. Elena, please, let me keep you safe. There was something raw in his voice, something almost desperate. This man who commanded empires, who made grown men flee with a look he was asking me, pleading with me. Okay, I whispered. Relief flooded his face. Okay. We sat there in the firelight, his thumb tracing gentle patterns on my cheek, and I felt the walls I'd built around myself beginning to crumble. Sunday evening, Dante's phone rang during dinner. We'd been eating in comfortable silence pasta that his chef had made, wine from his private cellar, when the sharp trill shattered the peace. He glanced at the screen and his face went hard. I have to take this, he said, standing. Stay here. He moved into his office, closing the door, but I heard his voice rise sharp, angry, in rapid Italian that I couldn't follow. The call lasted 5 minutes. When he emerged, he looked like he wanted to break something. What happened? I asked. Marco made a move. He dragged a hand through his hair. Hit one of my restaurants. No one was hurt, but he sent a message. What kind of message? The kind that says he's not backing down. Dante came to me, pulling me up from my chair, his hands gripping my arms. I have to handle this. Tonight. But you stay here. You don't leave the house. You don't open the door for anyone but me or my guards. Understand? You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. This is what my world looks like when it gets ugly. He pulled me closer, his forehead touching mine. But I will keep you safe, no matter what I have to do. Dunch. He kissed my forehead, gentle despite the violence I could feel coiling in him. I'll be back before morning. Trust me. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in his massive house with guards at every door and the terrifying certainty that the man I was falling for was about to do something terrible. He came back at 3 a.m. I'd been lying awake in the guest room, unable to sleep, when I heard his footsteps in the hallway. I should have stayed in bed, should have pretended I was asleep. Instead, I found myself opening the door. He stood in the hallway, still in his black shirt and slacks. But there was blood on his knuckles and something dark and haunted in his eyes. "You should be sleeping," he said roughly. I was worried. I moved toward him before I could stop myself. "Are you hurt?" "No." He looked down at his hands. At the blood, someone else's blood, I realized with a chill. "I'm not hurt." "What did you do?" "What I had to." His voice was empty, hollow. "To keep you safe. To end this." I took his hand gently, studying the split knuckles, the bruises forming. "Come on." I led him to the bathroom attached to my guest room, made him sit on the counter while I found first aid supplies. He watched silently as I cleaned the blood away, as I dabbed antiseptic on his cuts, as I wrapped his knuckles with careful precision. "You shouldn't be taking care of me," he said quietly. "Not after what I just did." "I don't care what you did." The words surprised me, but they were true. "You did it to protect me, to protect us." "Us." He caught my hand, stopping my movements. "Is there an us, Elena?" I looked up at him, this dangerous, powerful man who'd shown me such gentleness, and felt something break open in my chest. "Yes," I whispered. "I think there is." His eyes closed briefly, and when they opened again, there was something raw and vulnerable there. "I'm not a good man," he said. "I know. I've done terrible things. I know that too. And you're still here." "Yes." I touched his face, this man who terrified and compelled me in equal measure. "I'm still here." He pulled me between his legs, his arms coming around me, holding me close. I felt him shaking slightly, this powerful man who'd just committed violence in my name. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered against my hair. "I don't want to be alone." We didn't speak as I led him to the bed. As we lay down together, fully clothed, as he pulled me against his chest and held on like I was the only thing keeping him anchored, I fell asleep to the sound of his heartbeat. And for the first time since my father died, I felt truly safe. Living with Dante was like existing in two worlds simultaneously. During the day, we maintained careful distance. He worked in his home office or disappeared to handle business I didn't ask about. I set up my laptop in his library and continued managing the accounts remotely, losing myself in numbers that felt safer than emotions. But in the evenings, the walls came down. He cooked dinner most nights, something I wouldn't have expected from a Mafia boss. But Dante moved through his kitchen with the same controlled grace he brought to everything. I'd sit at the island and watch him work, the domesticity of it bizarre and comforting at once. "My grandmother taught me," he explained one evening, stirring risotto with patient precision. "She said a man who couldn't feed himself was a man who could be controlled." "She sounds formidable." She was. A small smile touched his lips. "Ran half the family business before my grandfather realized what she was doing. By then, she was too valuable to sideline." "Did she teach you anything else?" "That loyalty is everything. That family protects family, no matter the cost." He glanced at me over his shoulder. "That when you find something worth keeping, you hold on with everything you have." The way he looked at me made my breath catch. These were the moments I was learning to treasure. The quiet conversations over wine. The way he'd reach for my hand without thinking when we sat together. The sound of his laugh when I said something that surprised him. We didn't talk about what was happening between us, didn't define it, but it was there in every touch, every glance, every time he pulled me close and held on like he was afraid I'd disappear. Wednesday evening, I found him in the library, staring at a chessboard set up on a side table. "Do you play?" he asked when he noticed me. "My father taught me." The memory ached, but not as sharply as it had. He used to say chess was life. Every move has consequences. "Smart man." Dante gestured to the chair across from him. "Play with me." We played in comfortable silence, and I was surprised to find we were evenly matched. He favored aggressive strategies, bold moves that left him vulnerable but created opportunities. I played more defensively, building careful structures before striking. "You're better than I expected," he said after I captured his bishop. "You're too impatient," I countered. "You sacrifice pieces you shouldn't. Sometimes sacrifice is necessary." He moved his queen, threatening my king. Check. I studied the board, seeing the trap he'd laid, and found the counter move. Not this time. We played for 2 hours, the game becoming a conversation without words. In the end, he won, but barely. Again, I demanded, and he laughed. Tomorrow. It's late. I hadn't realized how late it had gotten. The house was dark around us. Just the library lamps casting warm light. I should go to bed, I said, but didn't move. Elena. He reached across the chessboard, his hand covering mine. Can I ask you something? Yes. Do you regret it, coming to work for me? I considered the question carefully. 2 weeks ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. But now, no, I said honestly. I don't regret it. Even knowing what I am, what I do, even knowing. I turned my hand over, interlacing our fingers. You scare me sometimes. This world scares me. But you also make me feel safer than I've felt in years. Something shifted in his expression. You shouldn't feel safe with me. I'm dangerous. I know. But you'd never hurt me. Never, he agreed fiercely. I'd burn the city down before I let anyone hurt you. The intensity in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it made something warm bloom in my chest. Dunt. He stood abruptly, pulling me up with him. For a moment, we stood there, barely a breath apart, his hand still holding mine. I should let you sleep, he said roughly. But he didn't move, didn't let go. You should, I agreed. Neither of us stepped back. His free hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. His touch feather-light. This is a bad idea. What is? This. Us. Everything I'm feeling. Why? I was barely breathing. Because once I have you, Elena, I won't let go. Ever. His thumb traced my jaw. And you deserve better than a man like me. What if I don't want better? The words escaped before I could stop them. What if I want this? His control cracked. I saw it in his eyes, felt it in the way his hand tightened on mine. Don't say things like that unless you mean them. I mean them. He made a sound low in his throat, half groan, half surrender. Then his lips were on my forehead, pressing a kiss there that felt like a promise and a warning at once. Go to bed, he whispered against my skin. Before I forget, I'm trying to be a gentleman. I went, my heart racing, my skin burning where he'd touched me. Behind me, I heard him exhale shakily, heard the clink of glass as he poured himself a drink. I lay in bed for hours, replaying every word, every touch, knowing something fundamental had shifted between us, knowing there was no going back. Saturday afternoon, Dante found me on the terrace overlooking his gardens. I'd brought my laptop out, trying to focus on work, but the view kept distracting me. Taking a break? He asked, settling into the chair beside mine. Trying to. I closed the laptop. Your accounts are getting more complicated. Payments to companies I can't trace. Expenses that don't make sense. Worried about what you're finding? A little. I looked at him. Should I be? Probably. He stretched his legs out. The picture of relaxation in jeans and a dark t-shirt. This casual version of him was becoming my favorite. Less controlled, more real. But I trust you to be discreet. Because I don't have a choice? Because you're smart enough to understand what discretion means in my world. A bird sang in the garden below. Roses bloomed along the terrace wall, their scent sweet in the air. It was almost possible to forget the danger that lurked just beyond these walls. Can I ask you something? I said. Always. Do you ever wish you could walk away? From all of this? He was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes, when I was younger, I thought about it. Leaving. Starting over somewhere no one knew my name. He glanced at me. But this isn't something you walk away from. This is blood. Family. Legacy. That sounds like a prison. Sometimes it is. His hand found mine, resting on the arm of my chair. But lately it feels less like a prison and more like purpose. Because of the power. Because of you. My heart stuttered. Dante, don't. He squeezed my hand gently. Don't say anything. Just let me have this. These moments with you, before the world intrudes again. So I sat there in silence, his hand in mine, and let myself pretend that this could last, that a girl like me and a man like him could exist in these stolen moments forever. That night, I woke to the sound of movement in the hallway. Footsteps, quiet but present. I slipped out of bed and opened my door a crack. Dante stood at the window at the end of the hall, staring out at the city lights, his posture tense. I should have gone back to bed. Should have given him his privacy. Instead, I moved down the hall and stood beside him. "Can't sleep?" I asked softly. "Never can, after nights like Wednesday." His voice was rough. I close my eyes and see things I'd rather you never know about. You did what you had to do. That doesn't make it easier. He looked at me finally, and I saw exhaustion in his face. "You should be afraid of me, Elena, after what I'm capable of. I'm not afraid of you." I took his hand, feeling the scars on his knuckles. "I'm afraid for you. There's a difference." He pulled me against him suddenly, his arms coming around me, holding tight. I felt him breathe me in, felt the tension slowly drain from his body. "Stay with me," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." We stood there in the moonlight, holding each other, and I felt something settle in my chest. Whatever this was between us, dangerous, impossible, inevitable, I was choosing it. Choosing him. The call came during breakfast on Monday morning. Dante's phone rang, and I watched his face go cold as he answered. He listened for 30 seconds, then stood abruptly. "When?" he demanded. "How many?" I set down my coffee, dread pooling in my stomach. "I'll be there in 20 minutes." He ended the call, already moving. "I have to go. Emergency downtown." "What happened?" "Marco hit one of my warehouses. 3 of my men are injured." His voice was ice. "Stay here. I mean it, Elena. Don't leave the property." He was gone before I could respond, and the house felt too empty without him. I tried to work, tried to focus on spreadsheets and numbers, but my mind kept drifting to Dante, to violence unfolding somewhere in the city, to the possibility that he might not come home. Hours crawled by. Noon came and went. Afternoon faded toward evening. At 7 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Miss Brennan." The voice was smooth, cultured, touched with an Italian accent. "We haven't been formally introduced. I'm Marco Vitale." My blood ran cold. "How did you get this number? I make it my business to know things about people who interest me. And you, Miss Brennan, are very interesting." I heard the smile in his voice. "Tell me, are you comfortable in Dante's house? Do you feel safe there? What do you want?" "To offer you a way out. Before this gets messier than it needs to be." "I'm not interested. You should be. Dante is a dead man walking. His reign is ending, whether he accepts it or not. And when he falls..." Marco paused. "Well, I'd hate to see someone as lovely as you caught in the collapse. He's not going to fall. Such loyalty. Does he know how lucky he is?" Marco's tone shifted, darkening. "But loyalty only protects you if the man you're loyal to is strong enough to keep you safe. Is Dante strong enough, Miss Brennan? Or is he too distracted by his new pet to see the knife coming for his back? Go to hell." I ended the call, my hands shaking. I should tell Dante. Should warn him that Marco had my number, had reached out directly, but I found myself thinking about the exhaustion in Dante's face, the weight he carried, the violence he'd committed in my name, and I wondered if Marco was right, if my presence was making Dante vulnerable. Dante didn't come home until nearly midnight. I'd been curled up on the library couch, trying to read. When I heard the front door, I went to him without thinking, needing to see that he was whole and safe. He stood in the entryway, his shirt torn and streaked with blood, his own this time. I realized with a jolt of fear. A cut above his eyebrow still bled sluggishly, and he moved carefully, like his ribs hurt. "You're hurt," I said, moving to him. "I'm fine." But he let me take his hand, let me lead him toward the stairs. "It looks worse than it is. Bathroom, now." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Bossy, you're bleeding." I made him sit on the counter like I had before, gathering supplies with shaking hands. The cut above his eyebrow needed butterfly bandages. His ribs were bruised but not broken. His knuckles were split again. "What happened?" I asked, cleaning the cut gently. "Fight. Marco's men ambushed us at the warehouse." His hands settled on my hips as I worked, steadying me. "We handled it. You're hurt? I've had worse. His thumb traced circles on my hip through my clothes. Elena, look at me. I met his eyes, and the intensity there stole my breath. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for bringing you into this, for making you a target, for everything you're dealing with because of me. Don't apologize. I should have let you go. Should have found another way to settle your father's debt. Should have... Dante. I cupped his face carefully, avoiding his injuries. I don't want another way. I want this. Want you. His eyes searched mine. You don't know what you're saying. Don't I? My heart pounded. But the words came easier than I expected. I know you're dangerous. I know your world is violent and dark. I know being with you puts me in danger. I leaned closer, my forehead almost touching his. And I don't care. Because when I'm with you, I feel more alive than I've ever felt. Because you make me feel precious and protected and... seen. Elena. His voice was rough, strained. I should tell you something. I pulled back slightly. Marco called me today. His entire body went rigid. What? He wanted to warn me about you, tried to convince me to leave you. I met his fierce gaze steadily. I told him to go to hell. He threatened you. No, he tried to scare me. It didn't work. I touched his jaw gently. Nothing he said made me want to run. It just made me realize how much I trust you. How much I stopped. The words too big, too frightening. How much you what? Dante's hands tightened on my hips, pulling me closer until I was standing between his legs, our faces inches apart. How much I care about you. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was what I could manage. How much you've come to mean to me. Something broke in his expression. You're killing me, Elena. Do you know that? Standing here, saying these things, looking at me like... He stopped, jaw clenching. I'm trying to be good. Trying to give you time. Trying not to... Not to what? Not to keep you. His hand came up, sliding into my hair. Not to claim you so completely that you can never leave. Not to give in to everything I'm feeling and just... take. My breath caught. What if I want you to? Don't say that. Why not? Because once I start, I won't stop. His hand tightened in my hair. Not painfully, just possessively. I won't be gentle. I won't be patient. I'll keep you, Elena. In my house, in my bed, in my life. And I won't let you go. Then don't, I whispered. His control shattered. I saw it in his eyes, felt it in the way he pulled me against him, his mouth finding mine in a kiss that was desperate and claiming and absolutely overwhelming. I gasped against his lips, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss, one hand in my hair and the other spanning my lower back, holding me against him. He kissed like he did everything else with total focus and devastating intensity, like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard. Go to bed, he said roughly, before I forget every good intention I have. Maybe I don't want you to have good intentions. He made a sound that was half laugh, half groan. You're going to destroy me. Good. The boldness surprised me, but it felt right. Now come with me. I took his hand and led him down the hall, past my guest room, to his bedroom at the end. I'd never been inside before. It was masculine and spare dark wood furniture, crisp white linens, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Elena, he started. I just want to sleep beside you, I said, more confident than I felt. That's all. I don't want to be alone tonight, and I don't think you do either. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly. Just sleep. Just sleep. We lay down together, still fully clothed, and he pulled me against his chest. His heart hammered under my cheek, gradually slowing as the minutes passed. Elena? He murmured into the darkness. Yes? What you said earlier. About caring. His arms tightened around me. I care about you too, more than I should, more than is probably safe for either of us. I know. And Marco calls you again. I'll tell you immediately. Good. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. Sleep now. I've got you. I drifted off, wrapped in his warmth, and didn't dream at all. I woke in the early morning to find him watching me, propped on one elbow, his dark eyes soft in the gray dawn light. Hi, I whispered. Hi yourself. His hand came up, tucking hair behind my ear. Sleep well? Best I've slept in weeks. Me too. He leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. I could get used to this. Waking up with you. So could I. We lay there as sunlight slowly filled the room, and I felt something settle deep in my chest. Something that felt dangerously close to certainty. Dangerously close to forever. The week that followed changed everything. Dante and I fell into a new rhythm. I no longer slept in the guest room we'd abandoned that pretense after the first night. Instead, I'd slip into his room each evening, and we'd lie together in the darkness, talking about everything and nothing, our childhoods, our fears, the small details that build a life. He told me about growing up in his world, about learning at 12 that his family wasn't like others, about the weight of legacy and the impossibility of escape. I told him about my father's slow decline, about watching him fade while his secrets grew, about the guilt I carried for not seeing the debt coming. It wasn't your job to save him, Dante said one night, his hand tracing lazy patterns on my arm. He should have protected you, not the other way around. I should have known. How? He hid it from you. That's what addicts do, they hide until hiding becomes impossible. His arms tightened around me. But you survived it. You're here. You're safe. Because of you. Because you're strong. He kissed my temple. You just didn't know it yet. These conversations felt more intimate than anything physical could have been. I was learning him, piece by piece, the man beneath the power, beneath the violence. And with each revelation, I fell a little deeper. Friday evening, I was getting ready for bed when Dante appeared in the bathroom doorway. I need to show you something, he said. He led me downstairs to a room I hadn't been in before, his private office, smaller than the one upstairs, lined with filing cabinets and a desk covered in papers. What is this? I asked. Your father's file. He pulled out a manila folder, thick with documents. Everything about the debt, the original loan, the payments he made, where the money went. He pulled out a manila. My hands trembled as I took it. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know the truth. All of it. He leaned against the desk, watching me. And because I'm done having secrets between us. I opened the folder and started reading. The numbers made my stomach turn. My father had borrowed $2 million, yes. But he'd paid back nearly half before the gambling started. Then the payments had stopped. And the debt had grown, interest and penalties compounding. He tried, I said quietly, looking up at Dante. He really did try to pay it back. He did. For a while. Dante's expression was gentle. Then the cancer came, and he got desperate. Started gambling, thinking he could win enough to clear the debt. Lost everything instead. Why didn't you come after him while he was alive? I wasn't the one managing the loan then. Someone else was. They were less patient than I would have been. He moved closer. When I inherited it after he died, I looked into his situation, saw he had a daughter, saw you'd been taking care of him, had no idea about the debt. I could have gone after your mother's house immediately, could have seized everything, but you didn't. No, I gave you a choice, work it off or lose everything. His hand came up, cupping my face. I told myself it was business, a strategic decision. But the truth is, from the moment you walked into my office, I wanted a reason to keep you close. My breath caught. Dante, there's more. He pulled another paper from the folder. This is the debt total, what you actually owe. I looked at the number and felt my heart stop. This is only $800,000. I took into account what your father had already paid, what the debt should have been without the predatory interest my predecessor added. He watched me carefully. $800,000 at your current salary, which I'm doubling starting Monday, means you'll be clear in 2 years, not 4. Tears blurred my vision. Why would you do that? Because the debt was never what this was about. He pulled me against him, and I went willingly, wrapping my arms around his waist. You've been free to leave for weeks, Elena. You just didn't know it. Free, I repeated against his chest. The debt is a number, paper, nothing. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my face up. You staying, that has to be your choice. Because you want to, not because you think you have to. I looked into his dark eyes and saw everything there. The want, the restraint, the desperate hope that I'd choose him anyway. "I'm staying," I said clearly. "Not because of the debt, because I want to be here. With you." The relief that flooded his expression was almost painful to witness. "Elena, I'm falling in love with you." The words came easier than I expected. True and terrifying and absolutely certain. "I think I have been since the beginning. Since you looked at me in your office and I felt seen, really seen, for the first time in years." His hands cupped my face, trembling slightly. "Say that again." "I'm falling in love with you." He kissed me then, not gentle like before, but desperate, claiming, like he was trying to pour everything he felt into the contact. I kissed him back with everything I had, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. "Upstairs," he said roughly. "Now." He took my hand and led me back to his bedroom. My heart pounded as he closed the door behind us, as he turned to face me in the dim light. "Elena." His voice was strained. "If you're not ready, if you want to wait." "I don't want to wait." I was trembling, but I moved to him anyway. "I want this. Want you." "You're shaking." "I'm nervous." I touched his chest, feeling his heart race under my palm. There hasn't been anyone else." His eyes widened slightly. "You've never—" "No." My cheeks heated. "So I might not— I don't know what I'm doing." "Elena," he caught my hands gently. "We don't have to." "I want to," I said firmly. Can you—" I couldn't find the words. "I'll take care of you," he said softly. "I promise. We'll go slow. And if you want to stop at any point, we stop. Okay?" I nodded, some of the anxiety easing. He kissed me again, slower this time, his hands sliding into my hair. I let myself sink into it, into the sensation of his mouth on mine, his body against me. His hands moved to the hem of my shirt, and I nodded against his lips. He undressed me slowly, reverently, his eyes dark with want but his touch gentle. When I stood before him in just my underwear, I felt exposed but not vulnerable. The way he looked at me like I was something precious made me feel beautiful. "You're perfect," he murmured, his fingers tracing my collarbone. "Absolutely perfect." I reached for his shirt, and he let me push it off his shoulders. I'd seen him shirtless before, in passing, but now I could look my fill. The lean muscle, the scars that spoke of violence survived, the absolute control he held in every line of his body. We moved to the bed, and he laid me down gently, covering my body with his. The weight of him was grounding, safe. His mouth found mine again as his hands explored, and I let myself feel the slide of skin on skin, the building heat, the way my body responded to his touch. "Tell me if anything hurts," he whispered against my neck. "Tell me if you need me to stop." "Don't stop," I managed. He was patient, so patient, taking his time, making sure I was ready. And when he finally moved over me, into me, I gasped at the intensity of it, not pain. Exactly, but overwhelming. Too much, and not enough at once. "Breathe," he murmured, holding still, letting me adjust. "Just breathe, sweetheart." The endearment made my chest ache. I wrapped my arms around him, and he started to move slow and careful, watching my face, reading every reaction. The discomfort faded into something else, something that built and coiled low in my belly. His name escaped my lips like a prayer, and he groaned against my shoulder. "Elena," he breathed. "You feel God. You feel—" I couldn't form words anymore. Could only hold on to him as the pleasure built, as my body learned his rhythm, as everything narrowed to this moment, this connection. When I shattered, I cried out against his neck, and he followed moments later, my name a rough exhale against my skin. We lay tangled together afterward, his weight still pressing me into the mattress, both of us breathing hard. "Are you okay?" he asked finally, lifting his head to look at me. "Yes." I touched his face, overwhelmed by tenderness. "More than okay." He rolled to the side, pulling me with him so we lay face to face. His hand traced idle patterns on my hip, his expression softer than I'd ever seen it. "I love you," he said quietly. I know I shouldn't. I know it's too soon, too complicated. But I love you, Elena, and I need you to know that. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I love you too. He kissed me again, gentle and sweet, and I felt something lock into place in my chest. This impossible, dangerous man was mine, and I was his. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. 3 days of peace. 3 days where I let myself believe we could actually have this a life together. Simple and safe. I should have known better. Monday afternoon, I was working in Dante's home office when his phone rang. I watched his expression shift from relaxed to lethal in seconds. Where? He demanded. Then, lock it down. I'm on my way. He was already moving, pulling a gun from his desk drawer, checking the magazine with practiced efficiency. What's happening? I asked, standing. Marco's making a move. Downtown, at the Rosewood. He holstered the gun, then came to me, gripping my shoulders. I need you to stay here. Guards are on full alert. Don't open the door for anyone except me. Don't. Promise me. His hands tightened. Promise me you'll stay here. I promise. He kissed me hard and fast, then was gone. I tried to work, tried to focus, but 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Sophia. Elena, listen carefully, she said, her voice tight with urgency. Dante told me to call you. Marco's hit wasn't at the Rosewood. It was a diversion. He's sending men to Dante's house. The guards will hold them off, but you need to get to the safe room. Now. My blood ran cold. Where? Master bedroom. Bookshelf on the north wall. Third shelf, red leather book. Pull it. Room's behind the shelf. Lock yourself in and don't come out until Dante comes for you. The line went dead. I ran. Up the stairs, down the hall, into Dante's bedroom. Found the bookshelf, the red book. Pulled. The shelf swung open silently, revealing a small room with concrete walls, monitors showing security camera feeds, and a heavy steel door. I stepped inside, and the shelf began to close automatically. On the monitors, I saw them. 6 men, dressed in black, moving through the gardens toward the house. The guards engaged them at the perimeter, and gunfire erupted. I watched in horror as Dante's men fought. 2 went down, then 3. The attackers were too many, too prepared. They breached the house. I could hear it now: shouts, crashes, the sharp crack of gunfire. On the monitors, I watched them move through the rooms below, searching for me. One of them kicked in the door to my guest room. Another tore through Dante's library. They were methodical, efficient, and getting closer. Then the bedroom door burst open. Through the monitor, I watched 2 men enter. One moved to the closet, the other started checking the bathroom. A 3rd man entered, and my breath stopped. He was looking right at the bookshelf. He moved closer, studying it. His hand reached for the red book. A gunshot exploded from the doorway. The man fell. Behind him, Dante stood with his gun raised, his face a mask of cold fury. He fired twice more, and the other 2 men dropped. Elena, he shouted. If you're in there, I need you to open the door. I hit the release button, and the shelf swung open. Dante was across the room in 2 strides, pulling me out, his hands running over me, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? He demanded. No, I'm fine. More gunfire from downstairs. We need to move. Now. He pulled me toward the door. Stay behind me. If I tell you to run, you run. Understand? I nodded, terrified. We made it to the hallway. Made it to the stairs. Made it halfway down before a man appeared at the bottom, gun raised. Dante fired first. The man dropped. But there were more. They came from everywhere: the living room, the dining room, the kitchen. Dante pushed me behind him, returning fire, his movements precise and deadly. I watched him kill 3 men in as many seconds. Watched him reload without taking his eyes off the threats. Watched him become the dangerous man I'd always known he was. Then I saw the one he didn't. Dante, I screamed. Behind you. He spun, but too late. The shot caught him in the shoulder, spinning him back. He stayed on his feet, firing even as blood bloomed across his shirt. The attacker fell, but Dante swayed. I'm fine, he gritted out, but I could see he wasn't. Blood ran down his arm, dripped from his fingers. Get upstairs. Safe room. Now. I'm not leaving you. Elena. The front door burst open. More men poured in, and I knew with terrible certainty that we were outnumbered. Then gunfire erupted from outside. Different guns, different direction. Through the windows, I saw vehicles, black SUVs, men in tactical gear, engaging Marco's forces. Reinforcements, Dante said, relief flooding his face. My men. The fight turned quickly after that. Marco's men tried to retreat, but they were caught between Dante's guards and the reinforcements. In minutes, it was over. Silence fell, broken only by groaning from wounded men and the sound of my own ragged breathing. Dante turned to me, and the cold fury in his expression melted into something raw and terrified. Are you hurt? He asked again, pulling me against him with his good arm. Did any of them touch you? I'm fine. I'm okay. I pulled back, looking at his shoulder. But you're shot. It's nothing. But his face was pale, his breathing shallow. It's not nothing. I pressed my hand against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding, and he winced. You need a hospital. No hospitals. Too many questions. He touched my face with his bloody hand, leaving red streaks on my cheek. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This is exactly what I didn't want you, in danger because of me. This isn't your fault. It is. Marco came for you. He wanted to hurt you to hurt me. His jaw clenched, and he almost succeeded. A man appeared in the doorway, older, gray-haired, wearing a suit despite the violence. Boss, we need to secure the area, and you need medical attention. See to the wounded first, Dante said. Mine and ours. Then get the cleaners here. I want this handled before dawn. The man nodded and disappeared. Dante looked at me again, and I saw exhaustion and pain and something that looked like despair. I can't do this, Elena. I can't put you in danger like this. I can't. Stop. I pressed my fingers to his lips. Don't you dare. Don't you dare try to push me away because you're scared. I almost lost you today, but you didn't. I'm here. I'm safe. Because of you. I stepped closer, careful of his shoulder. I knew what I was signing up for. I knew the risks. You couldn't have known. I knew enough. I touched his face, forcing him to look at me. I love you. That doesn't change because things got dangerous. That doesn't change because your world is violent. I'm staying. Elena, I'm staying, I repeated firmly. So stop trying to be noble and let me take care of you. Something broke in his expression. He pulled me close, burying his face in my neck, and I felt him shaking. I love you, he whispered. God, I love you. I know. I held him as tightly as I dared. I love you too. Around us, his men moved through the house, cleaning up the evidence of violence. But in that moment, it was just us clinging to each other, grateful to be alive, together. The doctor came and went, stitching Dante's shoulder in his office, while I held his good hand and tried not to think about how close we'd come to losing everything. 15 stitches, the doctor said, bandaging the wound. Keep it clean. No strenuous activity for at least a week. Fine, Dante said shortly. The doctor packed up his supplies and left. We were alone in the office, the house quiet around us now that the cleaners had finished and the guards had been doubled. You should rest, I said. I should handle Marco. He was still pale, but his eyes were hard. End this permanently. Dante. He came into my home. He put you in danger. Fury edged his voice. I can't let that stand. I know, but not tonight. Tonight you rest. Tomorrow you handle it. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Tomorrow. I helped him upstairs to bed, carefully easing him out of his ruined shirt. The bandage on his shoulder was already spotted with blood, but the doctor had said that was normal. We lay down together, and he pulled me against his good side, holding on like he was afraid I'd disappear. I keep seeing it, he said into the darkness. That moment when I couldn't get to you, when I thought I might be too late, but you weren't. This time, his arm tightened around me. What about next time? What about all the times after that? Elena, this is my life. Violence, threats, danger. It's never going to stop. I know. And you're still here. Yes. I propped myself up on one elbow, looking down at him. I'm still here. Because I love you. Because a life with you, even with the danger, is better than a safe life without you. You're insane, he said, but there was wonder in his voice. Probably. I touched his face gently. But I'm not leaving. You're stuck with me. A small smile touched his lips. Stuck with you. I can live with that. We fell asleep tangled together, and I didn't dream of gunfire or blood. Just him, safe beside me. Dante left at dawn to handle Marco. He wouldn't tell me what that meant, and I didn't ask. Some things I'd learned were better left unquestioned. He came back 6 hours later, grim-faced and exhausted, but whole. It's done, was all he said. I didn't ask for details, just pulled him close and held on. 2 days later, Sophia appeared with papers for me to sign. What are these? I asked, scanning the documents. Official employment contract, salary bump, benefits. She set them on my desk. Dante wants everything legitimized. No more debt hanging over your head. You work for him because you choose to, not because you owe him. I signed without hesitation. That evening, Dante called me to his office. He sat behind his desk, looking more like the CEO and less like the vulnerable man I'd held during the night. There's something we need to discuss, he said. My heart sank. What? Marco's gone. The threat is handled. Your debt is cleared. He paused. You're free to leave, Elena. Go back to your old life, your apartment, your job at Davidson and Price. I'll make sure no one bothers you. I stared at him. You're giving me an out. I'm giving you a choice. A real one, without pressure or obligation. His expression was carefully neutral. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. And if I want to stay? Something flickered in his eyes. Then you need to understand what you're agreeing to. Marriage, eventually. A life in my world. Children who'll inherit this legacy. This danger. You'll never be completely safe. Never be able to walk away without consequences. Marriage, I repeated. Yes. He stood, coming around the desk. I want everything with you, Elena. But I need you to choose it knowing exactly what it means. I looked at him, this man who'd given me an out even though it clearly cost him. This dangerous, complicated, infuriating man I'd somehow fallen completely in love with. I choose you, I said clearly. I choose this life, all of it. The relief that flooded his face was beautiful. You're sure? He asked, taking my hands. I'm sure. I love you. I want this future with you. All of it, the danger, the power, the family. I want it. He pulled me against him, kissing me hard. You're mine, he said against my mouth. Completely mine. Yes, I agreed. And you're mine. Always. We told my mother a month later, over dinner at her house in Westport. She knew something was different the moment we walked in together. Knew from the way Dante held my hand. The way I leaned into him without thinking. Mom, I said as we sat down in her living room. This is Dante Moretti. My boyfriend. The word felt inadequate. But it was simpler than explaining the truth. My mother studied him carefully, this man in his expensive suit, with his careful manners and dangerous eyes. Moretti, she repeated. Like the family that your husband owed money to? Dante finished calmly. Yes, ma'am. I held my breath, waiting for her reaction. She looked between us, then at our joined hands. Are you happy, Elena? The question surprised me. Yes, very happy. Is he good to you? The best, I said honestly. She studied Dante again. If you hurt my daughter, I won't, he said firmly. I'd die before I let anyone hurt her, including myself. My mother was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. All right then, stay for dinner. It wasn't a full acceptance, but it was a start. 6 months later, Dante took me to dinner at the Italian restaurant where he'd gotten our first lunch. Private room, candles, wine that probably cost more than my first car. What's the occasion? I asked as we sat down. Can't I take my girlfriend to dinner? You can, but you usually have ulterior motives. He smiled. You know me too well. We ate and talked, the conversation flowing easily like it always did, but I could sense something beneath his calm exterior. Anticipation, nervousness, maybe. When the dessert arrived, I saw it immediately, the small velvet box sitting beside my plate. My heart stopped. Elena, Dante took my hand across the table. I had a whole speech planned, something eloquent about love and choices and futures. But the truth is simpler than that. He opened the box, revealing a ring that took my breath away, emerald-cut diamond, flanked by smaller stones, set in platinum. I love you. I want to spend my life with you. I want to build a family with you. I want to wake up beside you every morning until we're old and gray. He paused. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down my face. Yes, of course yes. He slipped the ring on my finger, then pulled me up and into his arms, kissing me like we weren't in a restaurant, like nothing else in the world mattered. I love you, I said against his mouth. I love you too, he whispered back. My Elena, mine, yours, I agreed. Always yours. The wedding was small, intimate, just family and Dante's closest people in the gardens of his estate on a perfect June afternoon. I wore ivory silk that hugged my curves, a dress Dante had commissioned from a designer who'd flown in from Milan just to fit me. My mother stood beside me, crying happy tears. Sophia was my maid of honor, which had surprised and touched me. And Dante stood at the altar looking devastating in black, his eyes never leaving mine as I walked toward him. We said our vows in front of 100 people who lived in the shadows, who knew exactly what kind of empire we were joining. I promised to love him in the language of his world, with loyalty, with strength, with unwavering devotion. He promised to protect me, to cherish me, to give me everything. When he kissed me, sealing the promises, I heard someone fire a gun in celebration, and I didn't even flinch anymore. This was my life now, and I'd never been happier. The reception was lavish, music and food and wine flowing freely. I danced with Dante, with my mother, with men whose names I didn't know but whose respect I'd somehow earned. You did good, boss, Sophia said when we found a quiet corner. She's good for you. I know, Dante said, his arm around my waist. Best decision I ever made, not letting her walk away. Second best, I corrected. The first was giving me the choice to stay. He looked down at me, and the love in his eyes made my breath catch even now, months after he'd first said the words. Dance with your wife, Sophia said, pushing us toward the floor. That's what receptions are for. We danced as the sun set behind the hills, as stars began to appear overhead. The city sprawled below us, full of dangers and opportunities, and the empire Dante controlled with careful precision. Happy? He asked, his lips against my temple. Completely. I tilted my face up. You? More than I thought possible. He spun me gently. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and find out this was a dream. That you're not real. I'm real. I touched his face. And I'm not going anywhere. Good, because I have plans for us. Oh? What kind of plans? The forever kind. His hand splayed across my lower back. Children. Legacy. Building something that lasts beyond violence and power. That sounds perfect. Not perfect, he corrected. Nothing about this life is perfect. But it's ours. Ours, I agreed. The night ended with Dante carrying me over the threshold of our bedroom, both of us laughing like teenagers. He set me down gently and kissed me until I forgot everything but the feeling of his hands on my skin, his love surrounding me completely. We made love slowly, tenderly, taking our time like we had all the time in the world. Afterward, I lay in his arms and felt completely at peace. Tell me something, I said into the darkness. Something true. What do you want to know? Do you ever regret it? The life you lead? The things you've had to do? He was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep and the ghosts visit, I think about all the choices I've made, all the blood on my hands. He pulled me closer, but then I look at you, and I know at least one choice was absolutely right. Which choice? Keeping you. He kissed the top of my head. Fighting for you. Giving you reasons to stay even when you should have run. You're the best thing I've ever done, Elena. The only purely good thing in my entire life. Tears pricked my eyes. I love you. I love you too. More than you'll ever know. We fell asleep tangled together, and I dreamed of futures and children and a life built on dangerous foundations but held together with love. 6 months into our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. I told Dante over breakfast, simply handing him the positive test without preamble. He stared at it for a full minute, his expression unreadable. "Dante," I asked nervously, "say something." He looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes the first time I'd ever seen him cry. "We're having a baby?" His voice was rough. "Yes, we're having a baby." He pulled me into his lap, holding me close, his face buried in my neck. "I'm going to be a father. A good one," I said with certainty. "I'm going to protect them, both of you. Nothing will ever hurt either of you." "I know." We sat there for a long time, his hand on my still flat stomach, already protecting the life we'd created. But danger never truly leaves the world we lived in. 3 months later, I was working in the home office when Dante's phone rang. I watched his face go cold as he listened, watched him transform from my husband to the dangerous man he'd always been. "When?" he demanded. "How many?" He ended the call and looked at me. "Marco's cousin is trying to start something, thinks he can take over where Marco left off." My hand went to my stomach, protective. "What are we going to do?" "We are doing nothing. I'm handling it. You're staying here, with double guards, until this is resolved." "Don't." "No arguments, Elena. Not this time. You're carrying my child. Nothing is more important than keeping you both safe." He came to me, kneeling in front of my chair, his hands covering mine on my stomach. "I will burn this city to the ground before I let anyone threaten our family." The ferocity in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it made me feel safe. "Promise me you'll be careful," I said. "Always." He kissed me, gentle despite the violence I knew was coming. "I love you, both of you. We love you too." He handled the threat like he handled everything, with calculated precision and overwhelming force. Marco's cousin disappeared, and the whispers about challenging Dante's territory stopped. But I knew it wouldn't be the last time. This life came with eternal vigilance, with threats that rose and fell like tides, and I'd chosen it anyway. Our daughter was born on a cold March evening, with snow falling outside and Dante holding my hand through every contraction, every push. She was perfect. Dark hair like her father, green eyes like mine, and a grip that was already surprisingly strong. "What should we name her?" Dante asked, cradling her against his chest with a tenderness that made my heart ache. "Isabella," I said. "After your grandmother." He looked at me with such love that I felt it like a physical thing. "Isabella. It's perfect." We sat together in the hospital room, though not really a hospital, but Dante's private medical facility where security was absolute, and watched our daughter sleep. "She's going to grow up in this world," Dante said quietly. "She'll know what her father is, what her family does. She'll also know she's loved, protected, cherished." I touched his arm. "And she'll be strong, like her father." "Like her mother," he corrected. "You're the strongest person I know, Elena. Then she'll be strong like both of us." He leaned over and kissed me, careful of the baby between us. "Thank you." "For what?" "For staying. For loving me despite everything. For giving me this a family, a future, something worth protecting beyond power and territory." "Thank you for giving me a choice," I said, "and for making me glad I chose you." Years later, I would stand in Dante's office and look out at the city he controlled, at the empire he'd built and protected with blood and strategy and unwavering focus. I would think about that day I'd walked into this building, terrified and desperate, with no idea that the man behind the desk would become my everything. I would remember his words, "It's not just business." Not anymore. He'd been right. It had never been just business. It had been fate, destiny. The collision of two souls who'd needed each other without knowing it. Was our life perfect? No. There were still threats, still violence that sometimes touched our world despite Dante's protection. There were nights when he came home with blood on his hands and shadows in his eyes, when I held him and whispered comfort and reminded him who he was beyond the violence. But there was also laughter. Isabella growing up smart and fierce, with her father's determination and my caution. Family dinners that felt almost normal. Quiet nights when Dante and I would sit on the terrace and watch the stars and remember how far we'd come. And through it all, there was love. Deep and complicated, and absolutely unshakable. I'd called it just business once. He'd kissed me against his desk and showed me exactly how wrong I was. and I'd never been more grateful to be proven wrong in my entire life.